Athletes who were caught cheating, Part 2. In 1994, on the day before the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, title holder Nancy Kerrigan was filmed finishing a practice skate, but just seconds later she was screaming in pain on the ground after a man with a police baton attacked her. The attack severely bruised her knee, which made her unable to compete. Her longtime rival Tonya Harding went on to take first place and was selected alongside her for that year's Winter Olympic skating team. However, police soon discovered that the attack on Kerrigan had been ordered by a bounty hunter. In a shocking twist of events, Tonya Harding's ex-husband Jeff Gillooly and her once bodyguard Sean Eckhart were labeled as the culprits. They'd hired the bounty hunter to break Kerrigan's leg, removing Harding's competition in the upcoming events. Although she claimed she had no part in the conspiracy, Harding later admitted that she knew her ex-husband had been involved, but she'd failed to report it. But karma had the last laugh. At the games, a malfunction with her skates saw Tonya placed down in 8th, while Kerrigan managed a silver in 2nd. Here are 3 regular things that are illegal in North Korea. Mourning without meaning it. Yes, you can go to jail for that. When a public leader dies, the citizens need to show intense hysteria and public mourning as a symbol of their loyalty and adoration. People who fail to put up a show are taken into custody, and the people who don't show up to mourn at all are executed. Jeans are also illegal in North Korea as they are seen as an American symbol. Since North Koreans consider America as their #1 enemy, jeans were banned. The hate towards the US and the West is so strong that kindergarten kids are being taught to dislike everything to do with them. There are estimated to be between 200,000 and 400,000 Christians in North Korea. However, practicing religion is illegal. Citizens are only allowed to worship Kim's family, and owning a Bible could get you in prison, or worse, executed. Just to make matters worse, Christmas was banned in North Korea too. This security video from 2016 shows American Otto Warmbier, who was visiting North Korea as a tourist, taking down a propaganda poster in his hotel to take home as a souvenir. But little did he know what he just did was a massive crime. When it was time to leave the country, he was detained and brought into custody, where he was sentenced to 15 years of imprisonment with hard labor for taking down the poster. But just a few short months into his sentence, he fell into a coma. After 17 months in captivity, the US and North Korea came to an agreement and he was freed in June 2017, still in a comatose state. When he arrived back home to Ohio, doctors discovered he had extensive brain damage, possibly due to abuse. And 6 days after his return, he passed away. Many say that North Korea purposefully put him into a coma so that he wouldn't be able to tell anyone what he saw or what was done to him. May Otto Warmbier rest in peace. Here were 3 of the most disturbing communities on Reddit. Just a quick heads up, if you have a sensitive stomach, don't go searching these subreddits. Let's start off with some mild stuff, shall we? The Reddit community r/human toilets is not just a place for pictures and videos of people using others as toilets, but also a meeting place for people who want to be used for those types of bodily functions. We live in 2022, and while some kinks are starting to be widely accepted, this shouldn't be one of them. The subreddit r/beating women is a dedicated community full of photos and videos of women being assaulted, but also discussions on how to beat women and inflict the most pain. And the last one, and the one I do not recommend visiting, is eye bleach. A lot of people make the mistake between eye bleach with an A, which is a subreddit for cute animals, and eye bleach without the A, which is just pure gore, videos and images of cruelty, and much more. You'll definitely need to wash your eyes with bleach after seeing that. If these animal moments weren't recorded, no one would believe it. Part 2. On New Year's Eve in 2012, the people in Norway were confused when thousands of dead fish washed up on a beach. There were so many fish that they weighed an estimated 20 tons. But here's where things get crazy. Before anyone could even count the fish, let alone clean them up, the fish disappeared. No one's sure how these fish all washed up and then disappeared within a few hours. The fish clearly weren't alive as they were no longer in the water. So how on earth did they simply vanish? It makes no sense. According to the World Health Organization, it has recently been reported that an Ebola outbreak has been declared in Uganda. Health officials have found over a dozen cases of the infection, and already over 30 deaths have been attributed to the outbreak. This virus can spread through bodily fluids, and it can take several days for symptoms to appear, time in which the person is contagious. The disease causes both internal and external bleeding and is more often than not fatal. Unfortunately, there is no approved Ebola vaccine yet. This particular outbreak is caused by the Sudan virus, which has a mortality rate ranging anywhere from 20 to 90%. Because there is no vaccine available for this particular strain, authorities are working relentlessly to find the source of the outbreak, but also to isolate those who are currently infected, all in the hopes of containing this outbreak before it spreads more widely. This is probably the most messed up thing I've ever heard. In 2000, during the Sydney Paralympics, the Spanish learning disabled basketball team beat Russia in their final match to win gold. But after the games closed, a member of the team, Carlos Ribagorda, confessed something outrageous to the press. The team was supposed to be made up exclusively of players with an IQ of less than 70, but 10 of their 12 players were actually mentally competent athletes with much higher IQs than the maximum. Apparently, they had all signed up as part of a wider scheme to boost their country's chances of winning. They were even provided with fake medical certificates to help them feign disabilities. Worst of all, for 2 years leading up to the Paralympics, they had trained around the world beating disabled athletes. Shockingly, the mastermind behind the scheme was the president of the Spanish Federation of Sports for the Intellectually Disabled, but he was fined just 5,400 euros after admitting to charges of fraud and embezzlement. While watching the new mind-bending sci-fi show The Peripheral, it got me thinking, if you could see your future and use that information to make changes to your life in the present, would you want to? That's exactly what takes place in this show, where it is the year 2032 and Flynn gets the chance to beta test a new super advanced VR game. Through this simulation, Flynn can transport her consciousness into an AI avatar from an alternate future set in London in 2099, while her physical being remains in the past. The show introduces the concept of future bending, which is when you see what is going to happen in the future and use that information to make changes in your present, thus changing your future. So is this type of future bending actually possible? VR has come a long way over the last few years, allowing us to step into places we could only imagine. Who knows, that along with the known fact that space-time can be bent could one day allow us to experience this type of reality, hopefully sooner rather than later. To see future bending in action, tune into Prime Video to watch The Peripheral now. If these animal moments weren't recorded, no one would believe it. On New Year's Eve in 2011, the people in Arkansas, USA were shocked when it began to rain dead ravens. That's right, over 5,000 dead raven birds fell from the sky. This phenomenon remains unexplained to this day. No one is sure how 5,000 birds flying in the sky can suddenly pass away. Scientists found that they passed away from internal trauma, but there were no signs of damage on their outer bodies. There was also no sign that these birds were sick in any way. Here's what would happen if you stopped blinking. You're gonna be surprised with how fast you actually end up going blind. After 1 minute, you will feel slight discomfort, but it will be bearable. After 2 minutes, your eyes will start to tear up in a desperate attempt to lubricate the cornea. After 10 minutes, all kinds of bacteria and dust particles will deposit on your eyes, causing an irritating sensation. After 15 minutes, the blurry vision will increase and you will start to lose your sight. After 30 minutes, due to the dryness, your eyes will bulge out and the pain will feel as if someone is using a tattoo gun on your eyes. After 60 minutes, debris and bacteria growth will make your eyes a junkyard. And due to the dryness, your eyes are now unmovable. After 2 hours, the areas surrounding your eyes have swollen as big as a golf ball. But hey, you've made a new world record for holding it this long. After 4 hours, your cornea is starting to tear open, and your eyes are now under a serious bacterial attack that will soon kill your eyes. After 8 hours, you are completely blind now, and your eyeballs need to be removed to stop the deadly bacteria growth from spreading to the brain. This woman's story is so insane it might make you not want to win the lottery. In 1999, Tonda Dickerson went from being a waiter barely scraping by to a multi-millionaire overnight. While working at a Waffle House in Alabama, Tonda received a lottery ticket as a tip. 6 days later, Tonda realized she had won $10 million. But shortly after winning the money, Tonda's ex-boyfriend Stacy Martin kidnapped her at gunpoint. He was about to kill her when she took his gun and shot him in the chest. Stacy survived the shot and somehow faced 0 charges after kidnapping and trying to kill Tonda. Her bad luck didn't end after the attack, as she was then faced with a lawsuit by her past co-workers. The lawsuit claimed that Tonda made a verbal agreement with her co-workers to split the prize money. Then the guy who gave her the ticket, Edward Seward, also sued her, claiming she promised him a truck if she ever won the lottery. Luckily for Tonda, she won both of the lawsuits. After that, since Tonda was sharing the money with her family, the IRS imposed a gift tax of $771,000 on it. Times streamers were caught cheating. Alex Zedra, the voice actor for Mara in Call of Duty Modern Warfare, live streams on Twitch on a constant basis. She usually has other COD players on her stream with her, in order to boost their channels and help them gain traction. On one of those types of streams, Alex hosted Icy Vixen and soon noticed that this girl was playing way too well. In one instance, Icy Vixen was able to perfectly aim at an enemy through a hill, which made Alex question the legitimacy of her COD skills. It seems that Vixen was using either wall hacks or a namebot. Both of these hacks are banned by Call of Duty. And after Alex did some digging, she found out that Vixen was indeed using hacks in order to gain an advantage in COD. Once caught, Twitch shut down her channel. The backlash that resulted from Alex outing Vixen made her delete all of her social media accounts. Players and Twitch users then uncovered some of Vixen's old gameplay footage, in which it can be clearly seen that her aim was perfect even when her hands were nowhere near her setup. This man is a murderer, cannibal, and necrophile who never served any jail time for his crimes. Yes, you heard that right. Issei Sagawa is known for killing Renee Hartvelt in Paris in 1981. He killed the woman in her own apartment, had sex with her corpse, then consumed various parts of her body. All this while taking pictures of the corpse at each and every stage. But when he tried to dispose of the remains, he got caught by the French police. After being held for 2 years awaiting trial, Sagawa was found legally insane and unfit to stand trial by the French judge. So instead, he was admitted to a mental institution. But because of the publicity his crimes got and the fact that some people started treating him like some sort of celebrity, the French decided to deport him back to Japan. There in the Madzuzawa hospital in Tokyo, he was found by doctors to actually be sane. But as the charges against Sagawa in France had been dropped and the French court reports were sealed, he couldn't legitimately be detained in Japan. He was released from the hospital on August 12, 1986 and has remained free ever since, contrary to widespread criticism. This man managed to fake a coma for 2 years so he could avoid going to jail. After being found guilty in 2012 of stealing 40,000 pounds from his dementia-ridden neighbor, Alan Knight would start to pretend he was paraplegic and sometimes would fall into a coma. Conveniently, this happened every time the authorities visited him. This fake in-and-out coma lasted for 2 years, in which Knight had admitted himself into a hospital for 10 weeks and managed to convince even the doctors of this mysterious illness, meaning he laid there without moving or opening his eyes for almost 2 months. Eventually, 2 years later, police were finally able to find CCTV footage of Alan out shopping and images on his computer of him being just fine. The picture showed him and his wife on holidays, at weddings, Legoland, and many other places where a person with a coma would not be able to go. Alan was jailed for 4.5 years in November 2014 on fraud and forgery charges. People who outlived insane prison sentences. On May 5th, 1975, Otis Johnson was walking down the street when he was stopped and searched by officers in Harlem, New York. The officers alleged Otis fit the description of a man involved in a nearby shooting of a police officer. The description only said that the man was wearing a tan jacket, but that was enough to convince the officers of Johnson's guilt. Somehow, despite a glaring lack of evidence or credible eyewitnesses, Johnson was sentenced to 25 years to life for the attack he was accused of. His good behavior made him eligible for parole 9 times, and during several of his parole hearings, he was told that if he just confessed, he could walk free. Johnson clearly had a backbone made out of pure steel, because each time he refused to confess to a crime he hadn't committed. Fortunately, his 9th parole hearing in 2014 was positive and he was finally released. That means he had been in prison for almost 40 years, all because he was wearing a tan jacket. This woman's story is so insane it might make you not want to win the lottery. In 1999, Tonda Dickerson went from being a waiter barely scraping by to a multi-millionaire overnight. While working at a Waffle House in Alabama, Tonda received a lottery ticket as a tip. 6 days later, Tonda realized she had won $10 million. But shortly after winning the money, Tonda's ex-boyfriend Stacy Martin kidnapped her at gunpoint. He was about to kill her when she took his gun and shot him in the chest. Stacy survived the shot and somehow faced 0 charges after kidnapping and trying to kill Tonda. Her bad luck didn't end after the attack, as she was then faced with a lawsuit by her past co-workers. The lawsuit claimed that Tonda made a verbal agreement with her co-workers to split the prize money. Then the guy who gave her the ticket, Edward Seward, also sued her, claiming she promised him a truck if she ever won the lottery. Luckily for Tonda, she won both of the lawsuits. After that, since Tonda was sharing the money with her family, the IRS imposed a gift tax of $771,000 on it. This man was a rogue serial killer, but now he's a YouTuber. Pedro Rodriguez Fillo started to take lives at 14 years old when he killed the vice mayor of Alfinas with a shotgun for firing his father. While he was on the run, he met Maria Olympia. They quickly fell in love and got engaged. Unfortunately, soon after that, Maria was brutally murdered by rival gang members, so Pedro set out to seek vengeance. He infiltrated a wedding arranged by the rival gang leader and massacred 7 gang members, injuring many more. Soon Pedro got the news that his father was in jail for killing his mother, so he visited visited him in prison and killed him by stabbing him 22 times. He then carved out his father's heart and bit a piece of it. When he was rearrested in 1973, he claimed the life of 47 inmates. Even though he officially killed 71 people, he was only sentenced to 30 years in prison, since Brazil's maximum prison sentence is 30 years no matter the crime. After spending 34 years of his life in prison, he was released for the final time in 2018, and now runs a YouTube channel to prove he has a good side. Movie scenes you thought were CGI but are actually practical effects. In this scene from the first Spider-Man movie where Peter Parker acquires his spidey senses, Peter saves Mary Jane from falling when she slips on a spilled drink, and also catches her lunch tray with all its contents. This whole sequence was real and no CGI was used in the making. It took Tobey Maguire 16 hours and 156 takes to get this shot. Weightlessness is often shot using CGI in space movies, but director Ryan Howard wanted to keep it real in Apollo 13. He used a KC-135 straddle tanker for achieving zero gravity. A single flight provided the film crew with just 20 seconds of weightlessness, and it took the film crew 6 months to get all the zero gravity shots. Now, we all know Marvel is known for their extensive use of CGI, but the ending skydiving scene from Iron Man 3 was shot without CGI. The production recruited the Red Bull skydiving team to act out all the roles in the scene, and filming the sequence took almost 40 jumps in a span of 6 days. This is a plague doctor from the 17th century, and believe it or not, this ridiculous costume ended up saving these doctors' lives, but not in the way you might think. You see, these doctors were hired by cities during bubonic plague breakouts, and at the time, it was believed that this plague was caused by bad air, so they stuffed a bunch of spices into a beak to act as a respirator. They also wore a long gown coated in wax to prevent this bad air from sticking to them. Now, they were wrong about this bad air theory, as the plague was actually caused by fleas. But because they coated their gowns in wax, it prevented the fleas from nesting on them, which ended up saving a lot of these doctors' lives. This man was trapped underwater in a sunken ship for 3 days and ended up surviving. In May 2013, a tugboat capsized after it was caught up in rough ocean currents off the coast of Nigeria. Unlike his crew members who were sleeping when the ship sank, Harrison Okene was in the bathroom. Except Harrison, all other 12 men aboard the ship died within just a few minutes. However, Harrison found an air pocket in one corner of the boat and held on to it for dear life. Harrison was stuck inside wearing just his underwear and with nothing to eat. In addition to hypothermia and starvation, Harrison was also losing oxygen inside that tiny air pocket. He later stated that he could hear the sharks devouring the dead bodies of his crewmates. However, a miracle struck for Harrison in the 60th hour of his ordeal. A team of rescue divers were sent to retrieve the dead bodies, and that's when Harrison made his presence known. The divers were quick to act. They equipped Harrison with an oxygen mask and raised him to safety. Despite his near-death experience, Harrison has a newfound love of the ocean and is now a commercial diver and dives for a living. Where did the myths of vampires actually come from? Like many myths, it is based partly in fact. Back in the 1700s, a blood disorder called porphyria became prevalent among the people of Eastern Europe. Porphyria is an inherited blood disorder that causes many vampire-like side effects, like the following: extreme sensitivity to sunlight, which led to facial disfigurement that caused the gums to recede, exposing the teeth, which then look like fangs. Next, blood drinking. Because the urine of people with porphyria is dark red, folklore surmised that they were drinking blood. In fact, some physicians had recommended that these patients drink animal blood to compensate for the defect in their red blood cells. Next, fear of the crucifix. During the Spanish Inquisition, 600 vampires were reportedly burned at the stake. Some of these accused vampires were innocent sufferers of porphyria, so porphyria patients had good reason to fear the Christian faith and Christian symbols. So vampires didn't exist in our world, but where vampires do exist is in the supernatural fantasy world of Myths of Moonrise. Myths of Moonrise is a match 3 puzzle and simulation game that includes vampires, werewolves, mages, and demons, where players can obtain heroes, establish their own territory of power, and have PvP confrontations. Click here on my profile to get it. This man can walk faster than most people can run, and when I show you the video of how fast he is, you will be shocked. This is Richard, a professional competitive race walker. He can walk 1 mile in 6 minutes and 39 seconds. That means his walking speed is over 9 miles per hour, which is over 1 mile per hour faster than most people run. For competitive walking to be considered walking and not running, your legs must remain straight and you must have 1 foot on the ground at all times. Before I show you the video of how fast he can walk, you may not be able to walk as fast as Richard does, but what you can do is get paid to literally just walk. I found an app that pays you for every step you take, and you're already walking 10,000 steps a day, so you may as well get paid. Click here on my profile if you want to get paid too. Okay, here's the video. This is what the last 24 hours of a death row prisoner looks like. First, the inmate is woken bright and early so they can make their last phone calls to friends and family, while the equipment in the death chamber is tested, including either the gurney straps or the electric chair's components. The inmate is then given a budget of $15 to $40 for their last meal, and they eat it at around 4 p.m. But in some states, prisoners no longer get to pick their last meal at all, so they only get the usual prison food. Next, both the victim and the condemned friends and family wait in the witness room for lethal injection. The prisoner is told to lay down on the gurney and is tied down by a team. Doctors don't perform executions because this goes against their code of ethics, so a special team administers the drugs. Sometimes inmates make a final statement, then the warden gives a signal to the executioner, and as the day ends, so does the prisoner's life. What happens when you try to pitch a pyramid scheme to the sharks on Shark Tank? Andy Nayakis appeared on Dragon's Den, which is the British version of Shark Tank, and asked for an investment of $175,000 for his business named Lioness. He claimed Lioness to be a cashback card where users would get 20 to 40% back on any purchase, which is obviously impossible. According to Andy's business model, he sat at the top and investors profited every time they brought someone new into the business. Once Andy claimed that the investors would earn their share of the pie by getting users to sign up for the network, it became clear that Lioness was neither a service nor a product. The whole pitch fell apart when Andy claimed that his company hadn't been able to return a single dollar. Arlene, one of the investors, could easily visualize how the business model was forming a pyramid. In truth, Andy was luring the investors into a pyramid scheme. The large amounts of returns he promised the investors never really existed. Your house is probably worth more than the house of Elon Musk. That's right, the world's richest man lives in a $50,000 house. Elon's house is so tiny that it can be transported on a trailer and assembled in just 1 hour. The house is built by Boxable, a company dedicated to solving the housing crisis with affordable and compact casitas. The Boxable house is extremely energy efficient as it's made with insulation technology and utilizes LED lighting. In just 400 square feet of space, the house includes a kitchen, bathroom, and a small lounge. The house also features a dual-sided TV, a washing machine, and various other electrical appliances and necessities. Elon's tiny house is located on the SpaceX launch site in Boca Chica, Texas, and Elon actually rents the house from SpaceX. People considered it a joke when Elon tweeted in 2020 saying, "I will own no house." But he lived up to his word and sold all his real estate assets worth $100 million, and now lives in this $50K tiny house. The real reason why the McDonald's ice cream machines are always broken is not because the employees are lazy and do not bother cleaning the machines. It is way deeper and more corrupt than that. McDonald's requires franchise owners to use Taylor ice cream machines. With a variety of buttons and no text explaining their purpose, Taylor machines feature a confusing interface. Moreover, the machines have been reported to show unclear error signals, giving no clues about the actual error. As a consequence, these machines break down frequently. However, the catch is, according to their contract, franchise owners are only allowed to call Taylor technicians for fixing a Taylor ice cream machine. A leaked invoice showed that Taylor technicians charged $144 for just 30 minutes and up to $400 for every additional 15 minutes of repairing. Moreover, 25% of Taylor's revenue is generated from repair services. To conclude, Taylor intentionally keeps its ice cream machines prone to breakdowns, thus profiting from the inevitable repairs. This couple sold their company for $850 million and bought it back just 5 years later for $1 million. In 2005, Michael and Sochi Birch launched Bebo. It was an early social media site that competed aggressively with Facebook and MySpace. It was able to amass 45 million users, which caught the attention of struggling giant AOL. AOL dropped $850 million to buy Bebo in an attempt to stay relevant. However, it quickly became clear that Bebo would not be able to compete with upstarts like Facebook and Twitter. Just 2 years after being valued at nearly $1 billion, AOL sold Bebo for a price of $10 million. When the company that bought Bebo filed for bankruptcy a few years later, the founders swooped back in and bought the company for just $1 million. They proceeded to turn Bebo into a live streaming website and sold it to Twitch in 2019 for $25 million. Today we're going to be talking about how The Wizard of Oz is actually considered a cursed movie. Judy, who was only 17, was drugged and molested during the filming of the movie. There has been countless amounts of reports that she was molested and sexually harassed by both the Munchkin actors and studio executives. Next, the actress that plays the Wicked Witch got horrifically burned during filming. During the scene where the Wicked Witch escapes Munchkin Land in a plume of smoke, the pyrotechnics team accidentally set off the explosion a little too early. This led to the actress's broom, hair, and makeup to catch on fire. Medics had to use alcohol to remove her toxic makeup, which was extremely painful due to her burns. Genius people who beat the system. Up until 2019, women were not allowed to attend soccer matches in Iran. But in 2018, these 5 girls successfully snuck into a championship soccer game disguised as men. Next, some schools don't allow guys and girls to be in their dorm rooms together. But this couple came up with a very creative solution to still hang out and watch movies together. Next, a mayor in Brazil prohibited bar owners from setting tables on the sidewalk. So the bar owners came up with an amazing solution that honestly looks pretty dangerous but also fun. Lastly, this man from Turkey was banned from his favorite soccer team stadium for a year, but he wasn't going to let that stop him from missing an important game. So he rented a crane and raised himself high enough so he could see the game, and he even led the crowd in a chant. Genius people who beat the system. A girls' college had a rule that said you can't have carved pumpkins in your dorm room, but the rule didn't say anything about pineapples, so she went ahead and carved one of those. Next, this guy's new job required a photo of him in a suit for their website, but since he doesn't own a suit, he just photoshopped his face over this guy's face, and honestly, it looks pretty real, so I can't blame him. Next, this sign says no bicycle riding, rollerblading, roller skating, skateboarding, or scooter riding, but it doesn't say no unicycling, so he isn't exactly breaking the rules. Next, these signs say that if you park on this side, you have to pay for parking, and if you park on the other side, you will get towed. So this guy parked in between both of the signs, so he doesn't have to do either. That's pure genius. Next, a guy posted this photo online and said whenever he parks illegally, he puts a fake ticket on his windshield so the cops won't give him a real one. That's pretty creative. Genius people who beat the system. First up, a class of students were required to pick a Marvel character and then write a resume and cover letter pretending to be them. A student thought of the perfect idea and picked Groot, and since all he says is, "I am Groot," that's what he put for everything. Next, a girl's mom locked her phone in the bottom drawer because she misbehaved. But her daughter realized that all she had to do was take out the top drawer and she could get her phone back. Next, a girl's dad went to Vegas for 5 days and put a camera in the living room to make sure she didn't have any parties. But the girl wasn't going to let that stop her, so she came up with this pretty creative solution. Next, this parking spot says only green vehicles can park there, but I think the owner of this car took that a little too serious. Next, this kid was playing a game on his laptop when his mom told him to go play outside, so he literally grabbed his laptop and played outside. Genius people who beat the system. This student was only allowed to have a 1-page cheat sheet, so they wrote a whole page of notes in blue pen and another page in red pen. They then brought 3D glasses to class, so when they look through the blue side, they can see the red pen, and when they look through the red side, they can see the blue pen. Next, a couple's landlord said that they couldn't paint the walls in their apartment, so they got hundreds of paint strips and covered the walls with them. Next, a teacher wouldn't allow students to eat in class, so a kid filled his empty lip balm with cheese so he could sneak it in. Next, this kid was asked to name the country that owns Greenland. Hint, it's not Greenland. So he put not Greenland and the teacher actually marked it right. Next, this kid's mom told him that food wasn't allowed in the living room and his tablet wasn't allowed in the kitchen. So it's safe to say that he beat the system. Biggest movie mistakes you never noticed. First up in the movie Zootopia, there's one obvious mistake that most people have never noticed. In this scene where Judy is on the phone with her parents, you can clearly see that the time says 8:40 p.m. But then just a couple of seconds later, when she puts her phone down, you can see it says 9:44 p.m. How does that even happen? Next, in the movie Inside Out, there's one mistake I'm shocked made the final cut. In this scene where Riley is running through her living room, you can see a white cable running along the floor. But just moments later, when we see the cable again, all of a sudden it's black. For something like that to happen, the editing team would have to reanimate the cable to be a different color, but why would they do that? Next up is Big Hero 6, and the mistake in this one is very similar to the last one. In this scene where Hero meets Professor Callahan, you can see his shirt is blue, but when he reaches out, it turns red, and then it turns back to blue again. I honestly have no words for that one. This European general may not be widely known in America, but he was one of the most impressive generals to have ever lived. Jan Žižka was a Czech general born in 1360 who led forces against 3 crusades and never lost a single battle. He was such a badass they made a blockbuster action movie about him called Medieval. It's an R-rated, gritty, violent, and entertaining movie starring Ben Foster and Michael Caine that is a definite must-watch. His armies fought with makeshift weapons to defeat heavily armed opponents who always vastly outnumbered his own troops. His tactics were unorthodox and innovative, to say the least. He essentially created the medieval version of the tank, 500 years before the tank was invented. The armored war wagons he used allowed his troops to defend from oncoming cavalry and infantry attacks. Oh, and he won his battles with only one good eye, since he lost vision in one early in his life. If that's not impressive enough, he remained undefeated on the battlefield after going completely blind in both eyes later in his life. Make sure you go and see Medieval in theaters this weekend. Will humans ever be able to teleport? Well, believe it or not, teleportation is actually already possible, and I don't mean theoretically possible, but actually possible. The bad news is, it's a little bit different than what is shown in movies and TV shows. It isn't full-on human teleportation, but rather it is quantum teleportation, which is the transfer of information. It lets us transfer information on the quantum level between things that are not physically linked, meaning we could potentially use this technology to teleport the entire molecular makeup of an entire human being, and use that perfect blueprint to build an exact copy somewhere else far away, which is basically teleportation. But there's actually an easy way to teleport right now if you want. If you get Genshin Impact, you can unlock waypoints that allow you to teleport instantly across 4 huge regions. Sumeru, the last region, is now available with the 3.0 version update. In case you haven't heard about Genshin Impact, it's a free-to-play open-world elemental strategy combat game that has won multiple Mobile Game of the Year awards, but it's also available on multi-platforms. Click here on my profile to get it. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. In 2016, engineers at Nissan created the office chairs of the future. By linking each chair to Wi-Fi and adding motorized wheels, the engineers were able to create an army of chairs that tuck themselves away at the clap of the hand. Next, Snappy Screen has made protecting yourself from the sun easier than ever. The machine spins you around and coats you in a perfect layer of sunscreen. You can choose your desired SPF, and the booth comes with disposable shades to keep the sunblock from getting in your eyes. Next, students from the University of Washington created a pair of gloves that can translate the physical movements of sign language into spoken language. Now, people without the ability to vocalize can communicate with non-sign language speakers easier than ever. Next, scientists at Disney have developed a special charger that can be built into the very walls of certain rooms. These rooms can charge up to 10 devices by reverberating electromagnetic waves off of metal walls. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. Starting off in South Korea, some red traffic lights have a countdown delay that shows you how long it will be until it turns green. And it has been proven to reduce the accident rate by more than 50%. Next, you can say goodbye to hard-to-reach wall sockets with the Rambler socket. The Rambler socket has an extension cord built into the wall itself and can also be used the normal way. It contains about 5 feet of extra cabling and only requires a gentle tug to coil it back into the wall. Next, the Let's Pizza vending machine is the only machine in the world that can prepare Italian pizza from scratch in under 3 minutes, and the machine actually offers 4 different varieties of pizzas. Next, with this adjustable hot sauce, you can pick your spice levels. The clever device mixes a blend of mild and hot sauce, so all you have to do is twist the cap and select the level of heat you want. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. Some elevators in Asia have giant buttons on the floor that you can kick to mark what floor you're going to. This was designed to help people who are carrying things and can't press the buttons with their hands. Next, there's a mall that lets you leave your dog in a safe spot while you shop. The spot has a security system so that only you could open them, as well as lighting and air conditioning. Next, in the United States, there's a shoe store that lets you test the shoes on different surfaces. The test box includes gravel, asphalt, and even materials like Legos. Next, there's restaurants that give you a controller with 3 buttons. The first button is to let the waiters know when you're ready to order. The second button is to let them know when you're ready to pay. And the third button is to cancel your order. The idea is to avoid waiters from constantly asking you if you're ready to order. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. In Poland, this bike path was made using thousands of tiny luminophores, which is a material that produces low levels of light for 10 hours, then recharges itself from the sun. The bike path doesn't require electricity and provides safety for people biking at night. Next, 20 different cities in France have already implemented this. It allows you to charge your phone by using pedal power. The goal of the company is to promote an active lifestyle while making sure your phone doesn't die, and people who use the bike also get free Wi-Fi. Next, the Cal Maritime Police Department in California has placed a safe zone outside which is watched by a camera 24/7. They made this zone so you don't have to worry about getting hurt or robbed when purchasing things from people in your city. Mother Gothel from Tangled is the evil queen from Snow White. At the end of Snow White, the evil queen falls off a cliff, but we never actually see her die. But what does happen is that she finds the magical flower from the movie Tangled, which makes her young and beautiful again. Because remember, both the evil queen and Mother Gothel were obsessed with being young and beautiful. Also, it's very convenient that at the end of Snow White, the evil queen falls off a cliff. And in the movie Tangled, Mother Gothel finds the magical flower at the edge of a cliff. And to add on to that point further, both movies take place in Germany. Both women have the same exact dagger and look very similar in their older state. Also, even though both women never had children of their own, both of their names actually translate to mother. Also, the famous red apple from the movie Snow White actually shows up in Tangled here after Mother Gothel stabs Flynn. I'm going to ruin your childhood, part 83. In the show Good Luck Charlie, Teddy was never actually vlogging. And in the show iCarly, Freddy was never holding the camera. Next, I recently realized something about Mike Wazowski from Monsters Inc. His chin is also his crotch, which makes all the times he rubs it, which is a lot of times, very weird. Next, I always wondered how Mr. Krabs could have a whale daughter, but Pearl calls Mr. Krabs daddy and always asks for money, so that means Mr. Krabs is actually her sugar daddy. Next, Plankton built his computer wife Karen, so that means he programmed her personality. He made a wife who would make fun of him and mock him, so that means Plankton has a humiliation kink. Movie scenes that were changed depending on what country you're in. In the movie Inside Out, in this scene where Riley's parents are trying to feed her broccoli, this was changed in Japan to bell peppers, since most kids there like broccoli but don't like bell peppers. Next, while viewers in the USA and Canada saw a hockey match playing out in Riley's dad's mind, since hockey isn't a big deal outside of those countries and since the most popular sport in the world is soccer or football, they changed the team from playing hockey to instead show them playing soccer. Next, in this scene where Bing Bong reads a sign and points to the letters, not only did they translate the sign for other languages, but they even went as far as to reanimate Bing Bong, so that he points to the letters from right to left instead of left to right to accommodate the languages that read that way. Descendants of famous historical figures. Jean-Marie Laurette was born in 1918 and grew up knowing nothing about his father as his mom never spoke of him. But in 1951, when his mom, Charlotte Lobjoie, was on her deathbed, she revealed his father was a German soldier named Adolf Hitler. When Jean heard this, he began investigating and tried to figure out if Hitler was actually his father. Official German army documents were discovered which showed that officers brought envelopes of cash to Charlotte during the German occupation of France. This sent cash could be evidence that Hitler remained in contact with Charlotte after he left her. Also, paintings were discovered in Charlotte's attic that were signed Adolf Hitler. There was also a painting found with Hitler that he made that closely resembled Charlotte, though it's uncertain if it was really her. Also, Jean and Hitler were the same blood type and both looked very similar. This man became the deadliest sniper the world has ever seen, all without ever using a scope, and his confirmed number of kills will shock you. Timo Heha was a Finnish sniper who served in the Winter War of 1939 against the Soviet Union. He preferred to use a rifle with an iron sight rather than a scope so the enemy couldn't see the glare off the sight's glass. He would wear all white and pack himself in heavy snow to blend in with his environment. He would also put snow in his mouth to hide his breath. And in less than 100 days of combat, he had 542 confirmed sniper kills, but it's estimated he had closer to 800 kills, if you count the kills he got with his submachine gun, which he used as a secondary. All this earned him the nickname the White Death amongst both his fellow soldiers and enemy. You can now also be a legendary sniper in the war strategy mobile game Warpath. There are tons of challenging missions, and for a mobile game, it's honestly got some really cool sniping animations. There's way more than just sniping too, as you can use tanks, planes, and other weapons to defeat other real players. Warpath is available on the App Store and the Google Play Store. Sad things you never noticed in Marvel movies, part 3. In Avengers Infinity War, during the snap, Groot says, "I am Groot" to Rocket as he dusted. But the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, James Gunn, confirmed that those final words actually translate to dad. In Iron Man 3, Tony says this:
"I can't sleep, and I have to protect the one thing that I can't live without. That's you."
Tony couldn't sleep until Pepper was safe, so that's why she says this to him when he's dying in Avengers Endgame.
You can rest now.
In the show Loki, Loki's file in the TVA doesn't end when Thanos snapped his neck, but rather when Thor hugged him, meaning the last thing Loki felt was the hug his brother gave him. With the 13,000 nukes that currently exist, every city on the planet could be destroyed. Even if you were lucky enough to survive the immediate blasts, fires, and radiation, the explosions would carry so much ash into the atmosphere it'd cause a global winter, where temperatures could stay below freezing year-round. Estimates show that some of humanity might survive the immediate impacts, but it would definitely be the end of human civilization as we know it. That's why I want to shed light on #Cranes for Our Future, which is a movement that advocates for a peaceful future where nuclear weapons don't exist, where problems between nations are solved based on mutual respect and not by fighting and destroying each other. This August, for the first time in 7 years, governments are meeting at the United Nations to discuss nuclear disarmament. And we can show them the world is demanding action. Just fold a paper crane and share it on your social media accounts with #Cranes for Our Future to show your support. Secret German wonder weapons that could have changed World War II. The Speer Gustav was a 1,350-ton railway gun that was the largest cannon/gun ever built and used in history. It could fire 7-ton shells up to a range of 29 miles, was 4 stories tall, and needed a crew of 2,000 to make it work. The sonic cannon used methane gas and 2 parabolic dishes to emit strong vibrations that at further distances would make you lose consciousness, but at closer distances it would literally shake you apart from the inside and destroy your cells, tissue, organs, and be fatal. Hitler wanted to create his own Death Star when it was revealed the Nazis were creating an orbital weapon named the Sun Gun. It would have been a 1-mile-long concave mirror that would be able to reflect sunlight onto a concentrated point on Earth. Improvised scenes in Stranger Things Season 4. Since Season 3, which came out 3 years ago, we've all been waiting for Hopper and Joyce to be reunited. And apparently so were Winona Ryder and David Harbour, as Stranger Things writers confirmed this kiss was totally unscripted. Winona and David added it in the day of filming, though they weren't instructed to do so. Eddie and Dustin's brotherly relationship was one of the best parts of Season 4, and it turns out the writers of Stranger Things confirmed that during Eddie's death scene when he said, "I love you, man," that was completely improvised by Joseph Quinn, who plays Eddie. And Gaten Matarazzo's character Dustin's genuine response of "I love you too" solidified the intense emotional ending.
I love you, Ed.
Behind the scenes of Marvel actors' last day on set. On the last day of filming for Avengers Endgame, when they were going to film Tony Stark's funeral, Tom Holland, who everyone knows is a one-man spoiler factory, was told he was going to be attending Tony and Pepper's wedding, and not Tony's funeral, because apparently the crew were so worried about Tom spoiling the ending. But here's where it gets really funny. According to Zendaya and Jacob Babylon, who play MJ and Ned, Tom revealed Tony Stark's fate to them before they got to see the film like everyone else, and spoiled it for them anyways. The best new features coming to iPhones and iOS 16. Now for up to 15 minutes after you first send an iMessage, you can edit it and it'll revise to whoever you sent it to. Or you can just unsend the message altogether, and you have the ability to mark a message that you've already read as unread. You can now copy text from your videos and not just from your photos anymore. And with a feature called Visual Lookup, you can long press and lift any object out of a photo and drop them into whatever you want, and it does a surprisingly good job for a 1-second background delete. With a feature called Desk View, it uses your phone's ultra-wide camera when it's mounted on top of your laptop or monitor to give you this awesome top-down view of whatever's on your desk in front of you, and it works surprisingly well. You can customize lock screens with different fonts and colors. You can add widgets above and below the clock. And with a lock screen feature called Live Activities, you can keep tabs on things like live sports scores or the status of an Uber ride. Incredible things people found hidden in their homes, Part 2. 3 days before Carl Sabatino's aunt passed away, she told him to check under her sewing machine. When he did, he found a painting. At first, he didn't think much of it until he noticed the signature on the upper left corner. The signature read, Picasso. Carl says his uncle bought the painting for $30 from a street vendor in London during World War II. Carl took it to an expert who discovered a partial right thumbprint embedded in the paint, which could only have been left by Picasso himself. And today, the work of art is valued at $25 million to $35 million. Improvised scenes Tom Holland came up with on the spot, Part 2. In Spider-Man Far From Home, when the first elemental shows up, we see Peter repeatedly bang his head against a giant bell in a tower. This super funny scene all comes from Tom and his brother Harry. The brothers came up with the sequence, shot it on their phone, and then showed it to director John Watts, who liked it enough to include it in the film. Marvel fan theories that actually came true, Part 5. In Avengers Age of Ultron, the vision that Scarlet Witch induced using her powers on Thor showed Heimdall telling the god of thunder that he'd lead Asgard into hell. This led fans to theorize that Asgard really would fall in the MCU and that it would literally be Thor's doing. That turned out to be true, as Asgard's destruction came in Thor Ragnarok, when Thor himself triggered the apocalyptic event in order to defeat Hela and save the remaining Asgardian civilians from her wrath. Speaking of Thor, you can now play as him in this mythological turn-based RPG game named Dislight, but not only as him, but as gods from 4 real-world ancient mythologies, such as Greek, Egyptian, Chinese, and Norse myth. You can use the power of the gods to defeat epic bosses and monsters that are hell-bent on causing destruction, just like Hela was. Click here on my profile to check it out. Maybe the reason dragons show up so often in almost every ancient culture is because they actually did exist. Let me explain. Depictions of humans fighting dragons appear around the same time period in places that are so far apart, like China, Africa, Mexico, and many more. If they did exist, maybe the reason we haven't found any fossils of them is because large birds had a hard time being fossilized because their bones were so hollow. It could be the same for dragons. And maybe they didn't literally breathe flames, but instead they were acid spitters. Having an acidic stomach would produce a lot of of hydrogen. Hydrogen is flammable, and with a mechanism to produce a spark like an eel, this could turn them into an effective fire breather. Whether dragons are real or not doesn't change the fact that in King of Avalon, you can raise and use dragons to rule your own kingdom. They now have a collab with Orlando Bloom that lets you use his character Orlando the Night Shard for free. And using him along with dragons in the new tower defense mode can lead to an easy win over other players and let you conquer other kingdoms. Click here on my profile if you want to try it. Eddie Munson is coming back in Season 5 of Stranger Things. In the last episode of Season 4, we see Eddie get bit and killed by demobats, but that might not be the last time we see him. Here's why. In Dungeons & Dragons, which heavily inspires the show, Vecna has a trusted soldier/helper named Cass, who becomes a vampire by sacrificing himself to Vecna, and after years of imprisonment, he betrays and kills him. Eddie technically sacrificed himself to Vecna since everything in the Upside Down, including the demobats, are Vecna. And to become a vampire, you have to be bit and killed by a bat like Eddie was. And since Eddie's body was left in the Upside Down, Vecna could revive him just like 11 revived Max. So more evidence of this theory is this shot of Eddie and Cass look very similar. The song Eddie plays to distract the demobats is Master of Puppets, which alludes to Eddie going under Vecna's control kind of like a puppet. Eddie also has bat tattoos, a puppeteer tattoo, and a spider tattoo. Last minute decisions that changed the course of history. Back in 1912, David Blair was second officer of the Titanic and was in charge of the key to the crow's nest locker. Blair was due to sail with the ship on its fateful maiden voyage, but was replaced last minute. This led him to crucially forget to hand over the key when he disembarked. Without the key, lookouts were unable to get into the crow's nest locker, which contained binoculars. So lookouts were forced to use nothing but the naked eye to watch out for icebergs. One lookout that survived the sinking said if they would have had binoculars, they could have easily been able to avoid the iceberg that sank the ship. The biggest lottery winners and where they are now, part 2. In 2006, Abraham Shakespeare won a $31 million jackpot, but sadly, Abraham was an uneducated man who struggled just to read and write, so he didn't know how to manage his money. So he hired Doris Moore as a financial advisor, and together they created Abraham Shakespeare LLC. Doris had full access to the company's funds and withdrew $1 million from the bank account. She bought luxury cars and houses for both her boyfriend and herself, bought Rolexes, diamond rings, and much more. A few weeks later, Abraham went missing and loved ones were unable to find any trace of him. Authorities were soon able to find Abraham at the home Doris bought for her boyfriend. Sadly, he was buried under a concrete slab in the backyard. Doris was arrested and convicted of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Times people cheated in Mr. Beast videos, part 2. During Mr. Beast influencer trivia tournament, he had tons of big creators compete to win $300,000. It was rumored the D'Amelio family had a screen set up somewhere off camera where they could just look up the answers. Every time they were asked questions, all 4 of them are seen looking off camera as if they are being told or shown the answers. And during this solo part, when only Dixie D'Amelio was supposed to be playing, she wins over and over. You can even see that her eyes never stay on her own board. And the thing is, it would have been so easy to cheat, as her whole family is just standing right behind the camera. All they would have to do is look up the answers and show her. And when she gets the last question right and wins the $300K, her family instantly shows up and Charlie is literally holding her phone. Creepiest things found in movie backgrounds. In the movie It, when Ben is reading about Derry's past in the library, the elder librarian can be seen in the background turning towards him and staring at him with a deeply unsettling grin. She remains out of focus the whole time, and the movie never highlights her creepy behavior. In the movie Hereditary, when Peter wakes up in the darkened and eerily silent house, you can spot his possessed mom hovering in the corner of the ceiling and staring at him. When he turns towards the corner she is at, she is then seen crawling away in the other direction without making a sound. Before I tell you the creepiest one, since we're speaking about things in the background, I found an app where you can erase anything from the background of your photos, and I mean literally anything. Click here on my profile, but don't use it for bad. In the movie Insidious, Renee spots a little ghost boy through the window dancing to Tiptoe Through the Tulips. But the ghost can actually be seen before Renee spots him dancing. Right in this scene when she tosses clothes in the laundry hamper. You can see the boy standing just to her left and facing the wall. Dustin spoiled Stranger Things Season 4's ending 6 years ago when no one noticed. In 2016, during an interview, Dustin's actor Gaten Matarazzo was talking about his favorite fan theory when he says this.
Other test subjects, besides 11, like 1 through 10, most of them are dead, but others were like banished to the Upside Down, like they couldn't get out. Because they were in the Upside Down for so long, it had an effect on them that they transformed into what was the monster. So the monster was a recent test subject.
Improvised scenes Tom Holland came up with on the spot. Even though Tom, Toby, and Andrew had never met each other prior to filming Spider-Man No Way Home, their immediate genuine love and respect for one another inspired the beautiful moment at the end of the movie, which shows the three web-slingers say goodbye with a hug. Well, it turns out in between takes of the rooftop scene where Tom first meets Toby and Andrew's versions of Peter Parker, Tom went up to Andrew and Toby and thanked them for their involvement in the film. At the end of their discussion, the three web-slingers shared a hug, which director John Watts saw. He immediately knew he needed to include that moment in the film, so he decided to end the movie with the three Spider-Men saying goodbye with a hug. So this scene is all thanks to Tom. Vecna has been in every season of Stranger Things since season 1. In season 4, we learn that whenever we either see a grandfather clock or hear a clock chime or tick, Vecna is somehow present. So we weren't officially introduced to Vecna until season 4, but he has been present in seasons 1 through 3 as well. Here's the proof. In season 1, right before Will goes missing, he sees a Demogorgon in the street which makes him fall off his bike. When he does, you hear a clock chime just like in season 4. Also, the reason Will survived in the Upside Down for so long and Barb didn't is because Will always sang his favorite song. Also in season 1, when Eleven meets the Demogorgon for the first time, you can hear a clock clicking showing Vecna is watching. In season 2, when Hopper enters the tunnels where the Demodogs are, again you can hear the clock chime just like in season 4. In season 3, when Billy gets taken by the Mind Flare to the Upside Down, you can again hear the clock chime multiple times. Unnecessary inventions that no one asked for but that actually work. Have you ever wanted someone to stop talking but didn't want to come off as rude by asking them to shut up? Well, with the speech jammer gun, just aim the built-in laser pointer at whoever you want to silence and pull the trigger. This activates a microphone speaker system inside it, which records everything they're saying and throws it back at them a fraction of a second later. The resulting effect is called delayed auditory feedback. It disrupts the way the person processes their own speech so much that it literally renders them speechless. They'll stutter, become confused, and eventually stop talking. This is what it sounds like if you try a tongue twister while someone is pointing the jammer gun at you.
Where's the pack of pickled pepper? Where's the pack of pickled pepper?
Times people cheated in Mr. Beast videos. Back in January of 2021, Mr. Beast hit $100,000 worth of gift cards on the Dream SMP. He had tons of famous Minecraft creators compete to see who could find it first. Streamer Tubbo was the first person to find the treasure chest and won the 100K. But soon after this, Stream himself got onto a voice call and started ranting about how Tubbo cheated.
It was kind of annoying how he found it. He turned on like view bobbing, turned his FOV up and could see through the walls. Because I announced in the Discord, said like seriously this time, like people were glitching last time, like no glitches, because it's a lot of money, like no glitches. And so when he did, I was kind of annoyed, but it's like whatever.
This is what Dream was referring to. This is from Tubbo's stream that shows him turning his FOV all the way up and running through this mine. As you can see in this clip, by doing this, he was able to see through the walls to find the chest containing the 100K. Incredible things people found hidden in their homes. Samantha Hartso knew something was lurking behind her mirror when she felt a strong cold flow of air coming from behind it. So one day she pulled the mirror off the wall and discovered there was no wall behind it. That explains why she felt cold air, but where was it coming from? She got a hammer to protect herself with and went in, and what she found sent shivers down her spine. Before I tell you, do you want to get paid to literally just walk? I found an app that pays you for every step you take, and you're already walking 10,000 steps, so you may as well get paid. Click here on my profile if you want to get paid too. She found an entire apartment on the other side that had water bottles, garbage bags, and random junk all over the place. Thankfully nobody was there, but she did find that the front door to the empty apartment was unlocked. So she made sure to lock it before rushing back to her apartment to tell her landlord about her discovery. If you ever see a grown man going door to door trying to sell candy, whatever you do, do not open your door. This footage captured on a Ring doorbell shows a woman opening the door to buy candy from this masked man. After she hands the guy the money, you can see him move to the side as three armed men burst into the house. Noises and screams can be heard coming from inside the home as the candy man just casually strolls away. And just minutes later, the Ring doorbell captures the three masked men running away with a bag full of stolen belongings. Recently, Elon Musk tweeted that on September 30th, Tesla is going to have a working prototype of their Tesla bot. The Tesla bot is a 5 foot, 8 inch, 125 pound self-learning humanoid robot that's purpose is to eliminate dangerous, repetitive, and boring tasks. Basically, the Tesla bot can do any physical tasks humans don't want to do, like doing dangerous construction work or even going to get your groceries for you. Elon said that robots would have a personality of their own as they have machine self-learning chips inside of them. He also said that they won't be strong enough to overpower a human or be fast enough to overtake a human. Every time Tom Holland predicted his own future.
What kind of superhero would I want to play? Maybe Spider-Man in like 10 years' time. If you could be in a movie with any 3 actors, alive or dead, who would you pick? Jake Gyllenhaal. My favourite video game is this little game called Uncharted.
Who was your first ever celebrity crush?
Zendaya. My favourite Spider-Man villain will have to be Doc Ock.
Any chance there's a multiverse in which Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and your Spider-Man all meet together?
Of course I'd love to make a movie with those guys. It would be so cool.
The biggest lottery winners and where they are now. In 2001, David Lee Edwards won a $27 million jackpot. He quickly went on a shopping spree, buying multiple luxury cars, a mansion, a medieval armor and weapons collection, a private jet, and much more. Within just 1 year, he had spent roughly $12 million and contracted hepatitis from repeated drug abuse. After 5 years, all his winnings were gone, his wife left him because he was broke, and he was forced to sell all of his belongings. After just 12 years, he ended up living in a storage unit where he died alone, surrounded by his own feces, owing thousands of dollars. Tom Holland spoiled Spider-Man No Way Home weeks before it came out, and no one noticed. Tom and Zendaya were getting interviewed by BBC Radio 1 when they were talking about Zendaya's stunt where she has to jump off scaffolding. Zendaya was saying how it was exciting and she was so looking forward to do it. And that's when Tom says this.
But that was quite a scary stunt.
Yeah.
What you guys did there.
Yeah. It was fun.
It was really fun.
It's very unnatural.
Well, I wasn't there. It looked really fun.
To like go, okay, well this is something and...
And right after he says that, you can see the moment his soul leaves his body.
I'm fine.
Have you ever wondered what that random sharp pain you get in your chest is and why when you breathe in it hurts more? Well, one of the most common causes of chest pain is something known as precordial catch syndrome. It occurs when nerves in the front of the chest are squeezed or aggravated. It causes pain that usually lasts less than 3 minutes and is not life-threatening and mostly affects children and adolescents. Time travel to the future is actually possible. Here's how. The faster someone is moving, the slower time goes for them relative to someone that is standing still or moving slowly. For example, if you were able to travel at 99.99% the speed of light, that means 1 second on Earth is just under 20 hours for you. That means if you traveled at that speed for 1 day, when you got back to Earth, you would have aged just 1 day. But on Earth, 72,000 days would have passed, or in simpler terms, you would have traveled about 197 years into the future. Crazy coincidences you won't believe actually happened. Part 10. In 1945, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip, and on the day he was supposed to leave, the US dropped their first atomic bomb. He had been 2 miles from where the bomb was dropped, but miraculously, he survived with minor injuries. He returned home to his wife and infant son in Nagasaki, where he went to work just 3 days later. As he was describing his experience to his supervisor, the US dropped their second bomb, this time on Nagasaki. Again, he was just 2 miles from the explosion, but this time he survived without any injuries. He ended up living to the age of 93 and died of stomach cancer in 2010. Videos that seem innocent but have a disturbing backstory. This cheesy dating show from the 1970s shows Rodney Alcala winning a date with a female contestant. Rodney was believed to have killed up to 130 women and appeared on the dating show during his killing spree. Luckily for the female contestant, she didn't go on a date with Rodney as she felt he gave off a creepy vibe. This video shows Chris Watts pleading for the return of his missing pregnant wife and 2 young daughters. At the time of this interview, he had already killed his pregnant wife and 2 daughters and put their bodies in oil tanks. And at the end of the interview, he has asked this question.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here.
In 2019, this man tricked the world into believing he was Ed Sheeran and got front row seats to the sold-out KSI vs Logan Paul fight. Ty Jones is just a regular guy from Manchester, England who happens to look a lot like Ed Sheeran. YouTuber Josh Peters flew him out to LA to attempt to pull off one of the most elaborate pranks of all time. Without any problems, Ty and Josh infiltrated the stadium, took red carpet photos, got interviewed, and tricked a whole VIP room full of famous YouTubers. Because of all the commotion, security had Ty moved to the elite VIP seats, sitting right by Justin Bieber and Rick Ross. And to end the night, they were even able to finesse their way into some of the most exclusive clubs in LA. Crazy before and after green screen effects in movies, Part 9. In Guardians of the Galaxy, Rocket and Groot are actually two guys in bodysuits that move around and fully act out all the scenes that include the characters. This leads to funny moments on set, like this scene which is actually Drax just petting a guy in a bodysuit. In The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, Benedict Cumberbatch played the fiery dragon Smaug. You can see him rolling and moving around as he's wearing a motion capture suit to act out the movements of the scary dragon. But in I Am Legend, when Will Smith gets attacked by a zombie dog, it's actually just a guy in a bodysuit holding a dog puppet for where the dog's mouth would be. Crazy things that Tesla drivers were caught doing while in autopilot. 19-year-old Taylor Jackson and her boyfriend recorded themselves doing the nasty as their Tesla drove itself on the highway. They posted the video online where it got over 20 million views and even got the attention of Tesla's CEO Elon Musk. He tweeted, "Turns out there's more ways to use autopilot than we imagined. Shoulda seen it coming." Most expensive mistakes in history, Part 3. In 1998, Yahoo was given the chance to buy Google for $1 million, but Yahoo said no. In 2002, Yahoo realized their mistake and tried to buy Google for $1 billion, but Google counteroffered at $3 billion, and once again, Yahoo said no. In 2006, Yahoo tried to buy Facebook for $1 billion, but Facebook wanted $1.1 billion, and Yahoo wouldn't increase their offer. By 2008, Yahoo was starting to fail, so Microsoft offered $44.6 billion to buy and save them from going out of business, but Yahoo said no. And by 2016, Yahoo was losing over $4 billion a year and were forced to sell the whole company to Verizon for only $4.6 billion. To put that into perspective, at that time, Google was worth $500 billion and Facebook was worth $330 billion. This video of Maxwell Berry screaming while duct taped to an airplane seat went viral in August of 2021. He was on a flight from Philadelphia to Miami when he groped the breasts and backsides of two female flight attendants. He was also recorded punching a male flight attendant. To keep Berry from attacking or groping anyone else, flight attendants used seatbelt extenders and tape to keep him seated and his mouth temporarily shut. Berry pled guilty to 3 counts of assault and was just sentenced to 60 days in jail and 1 year of supervised release. Crazy coincidences you won't believe actually happened, Part 8. JFK and Abraham Lincoln were elected 100 years apart. Both were succeeded by Southern vice presidents named Johnson who were both born 100 years apart. Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln and Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy. Lincoln was shot in a theater and his assassin was cornered in a warehouse. Kennedy was shot from a warehouse and his assassin was captured in a theater. Lincoln was shot in Ford's theater and Kennedy was shot in a Ford Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln's son was once waiting for a train when he accidentally fell onto the track. Before he was harmed, Lincoln was saved by a man he recognized as Edwin Booth. Edwin Booth was a famous actor and brother of John Wilkes Booth, who within a couple of years would assassinate Abraham Lincoln. This man single-handedly saved humanity from going extinct by preventing a full-out nuclear war. During the Cold War on October 27, 1962, the US Navy spotted the Soviet submarine B-59 hiding near Cuba. So the US started dropping non-lethal depth charges so that B-59 would surface for identification. But what the US didn't know is that B-59 was armed with a nuclear torpedo. B-59 hadn't communicated with their base in Moscow for days, so they thought the depth charges were attacks. So the captain of B-59 ordered the nuclear torpedo to be launched as a counterattack against the Americans. This would have started full-out nuclear war, causing global devastation, death, and possibly humanity's extinction. But to launch the nuclear torpedo, all 3 senior officers on board needed to approve, and everyone did, except Vasily Arkhipov. He argued this was not an attack and had a feeling there were just warning shots. He was right. Marvel fan theories that actually came true, Part 3. In Captain America: The First Avenger, which takes place in 1942, this woman is seen asking Cap for an autograph. But in this scene in Guardians of the Galaxy that takes place in 1980, we see the same woman as Meredith Quill, Star-Lord's mom. But somehow she looks the exact same nearly 40 years later. So Marvel fans started theorizing, saying the woman asking for the autograph was actually Star-Lord's grandma. And it turns out that the director of Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn, confirmed this when he tweeted, "That's Quill's grandma." Even though he said he made it up on the spot, since he's a director, it doesn't make it any less true. Most expensive mistakes in history, Part 2. In 1989, the Exxon Valdez oil tanker crashed into a reef off the coast of Alaska, spilling 11 million gallons of oil into the water. The captain of the oil tanker, Joseph Hazelwood, was said to be drunk while operating the tanker. The spill affected 1,300 miles of ocean, and cleaning it up and paying fines cost Exxon $4.4 billion. In 2009, Tiger Woods was caught in a cheating scandal which made almost all of his sponsors, including companies like Gatorade and AT&T, drop him. This made him lose around $50 million, but that's not all. His wife divorced him and was awarded a record $750 million settlement and custody of their kids. Crazy coincidences you won't believe actually happened, Part 6. In 1998, Bill Morgan fell into a coma after getting into a car accident, but miraculously he woke up 12 days later. In celebration, he went and bought a scratch-off ticket where he instantly won a new Toyota Corolla, which was worth about $20,000. After that, he was asked to reenact that moment on TV, so he purchased another scratch-off ticket and won $250,000.